Hello and welcome to Season 14, Episode 14 of Solely Singleton. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going? We're at the final episode of 14.
And this is the end of the season that will not end.
Yeah, it's exciting.
This episode has been brought to you by allergies. So was last week's episode.
Yeah, and the rest of the episodes until it snows again.
Mine should clear up by the time we're back, but you're fucked.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just use more nose spray.
Alright, as for what we're doing on this last episode of the season, you guessed it, it's the patron-decided episode. What did our patrons stick us with?
Stay tuned and find out.
Alright, now that we're below the fold, we'll actually tell you what we're doing here. So our patrons stuck us with the topic of pet cards the hosts defend and why. I took this as a great way for us to do a nice episode about pet cards and talk about the ones that we have currently and what that means. Because this is a topic that's good to go through every once in a while. Everyone has this unless you're a robot, in which case, spare me.
But yeah, I mean, everybody has pet cards. Even if they're fairly ubiquitous now, sometime in the future, they'll probably become a pet card just because you play long enough. You get attached to some just because of stories or whatever.
You either die or live long enough for Justin Parnell to tell you that he thinks Plowlander is unplayable. You won't believe number 7.
Yeah, that's about right.
So, we got together 10 cards each. They don't overlap. We already cheated and looked at each other's lists while we were building them. So, you've got 20 cards of us talking about pet cards, why they're pet cards, and our opinions on pet cards as a topic.
Yeah.
Alright, start us off right, Eric.
So I guess we'll start off in white, you know, the color that's notorious for being the best in Cube, that we like the most.
It's filled with pet cards.
But I've got one that I actually do consider a pet card quite a lot, and that's Arena Rector. Arena Rector is 3 and a white for a 1/2 human cleric. When Arena Rector dies, you may exile it. If you do, search your library for a Planeswalker card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. I just really enjoy the play patterns of this card.
I agree with you. I think it was a really good ad, actually. When I saw you ad, I was like, that's a perfect example. Because I don't consider it like Cube staple must play. But also, like, it's not that it's bad. It's just a good card that you favor highly. And I agree with you on favoring it because white is boring and Arena Rector makes for interesting decks.
Yeah, and like, it's not the most exciting, right? Like,
No.
Academy Rector would be more flashy.
Yes, but
that's a more difficult thing to actually support.
And of the two, I prefer playing with Arena Rector because, like, of the two, it's less feast or famine when you're playing it.
Right, you can just have Planeswalkers because you're playing white, and like, you can build a normal deck, and then you play Arena Rector, and you're like, cool, now I've put a choice on my opponent, kind of thing. And I just enjoy that aspect of play. I don't think it's the most powerful card. Arena Rector is, there's other 4-drops in white that are more powerful, but I enjoy it. And I think it's good enough to justify being in, but it's a pet card. I like it.
I also will start us off in white with Champion of the Parish. Champion of the Parish is a single white mana for a 1/1 creature human soldier with whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of the Parish.
I'm surprised you didn't go with one of the allies.
No, but in Magic, yes. Not my cube. So, Champion of the Parish is basically here representing the entire humans archetype as kind of like the default flag for it.
Right.
I have a super soft spot for this archetype. It is not required in any cube by any means, but it is one of the few things that I found that made people excited to draft a white deck, which is something I find very difficult in my play group. So Champion of the Parish has a soft spot in my heart for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, white weenies generally uninspiring, and anything you can do to give it a little bit of spice is nice. Champion of the Parish is not an all-star generally.
Right, like Usher of the Fallen, the new card, is a lot better than Champion of the Parish on paper. But Champion of the Parish passes the bar and is way more interesting.
Yeah. It at least allows for more interesting stuff. Yeah. Makes sense.
All right, Eric, let's go to number 2.
So my number 2 is something that like I was kind of overlooking, and then you were like, hey, you should bring this up. It's Doomed Artisan. Doomed Artisan is 2 and a white for a 1/1 human artificer. Sculptures you control can't attack or block. At the beginning of your end step, create a colorless sculpture artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of sculptures you control. I originally didn't have this because, to me, this feels like a staple in Cube now.
Which is funny, because, like, I don't think many people like this card other than us, but we've had such good games with it that, it's not going to be leaving my cube soon, unless I, really need to test some super deep theme in white, which I doubt.
I mean, yeah, maybe. But I'm a massive fan of Doomed Artisan. It's never let me down. Basically, whenever it hits play, I'm like, sweet. It's doing exactly what I want in this deck. And it's surprising because I honestly was not high on it originally. Like, it didn't mean anything to me. I was like, whatever, it's a fucking shitty 3-drop. But after playing with it for a while, it's definitely become a pet card of mine, and I like it a lot.
All right, so I am going to move on to blue with mine. This card contains blue, so that's fair. It's Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas. Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas has a lot of words. He is 2 blue-black for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker Tezzeret. He has a +1. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. He has a -1. Target artifact becomes a 5/5 artifact creature, and a -4. Target player loses X life and you gain X life, where X is twice the number of artifacts you control. Imagine how fast hot takes would be if I could read new cards as fast as I can read one I've played 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, you only messed up once.
I only messed up once in all those words.
But
that's a gold medal in this show.
It is. And Tezzeret's a gold medal for your pet cards.
Yes. So Tezzeret is up there as top dog next to Plowlander, who we know is coming later.
Yeah. And I mean, it could have been any of the Tezzerets, really.
It could have been Blue Tez, the new one, not the old one. I don't actually like Tezzeret the Seeker.
Yeah.
It could have been Bridge. It could have been any of the Tezzerets, really. I guess not that one random 4-drop Tez they made in Kaladesh that was terrible.
Sure.
But there's 3 Tezzerets that I could have put in this slot. And the artifact deck is without a doubt my favorite deck in Cube.
Yeah.
Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas summarizes that deck in a single card for me.
Yes.
I truly love this card.
I mean, it's one of those, Agent of Bolas is not good unless you're trying to support a deck like that.
Yeah. You wouldn't run him just as a generic 4-drop walker. He'd be terrible.
Yeah.
So I have a second card from the artifact deck in my list that we'll talk about in a moment here. But Tezzeret is basically the artifact deck given form, so that's why he's on my list. And that's why I think pet cards doesn't just have to be a bad card or, a single good card. Sometimes it represents a archetype.
Right. Where it's more than just one card, but there are some cards that are the pet card. Agent of Bolas is your pet card, but the artifact deck is why it's your pet card.
Yeah, and if I say I'm going to play a Tezzeret deck, you see a lot more than Tezzeret in your mind.
Right, exactly.
All right, Eric, take us to your third one.
I'll move into blue. My third one is Standstill. Standstill is 1 in a blue for an enchantment. When a player plays a spell, sacrifice Standstill. If you do, each of that player's opponents draws 3 cards. I just really like this card.
Eric really likes this card a lot, guys. It's not super good in Cube. I'm not going to say it's a bad card. Standstill's great.
Fine. It's fine in Cube. It'll be fine.
You're a little weird playing it in your cube, but also I have played multiple cubes with Standstill. It is good.
Right. So it fits the pet card scenario for me where you only have Standstill in your cube if you like Standstill as a pet card.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those that you play Standstill and you're like, hee hee, ha ha, oh, I've done the thing. You just kind of get that giddy feeling of I have Standstill on the battlefield. What are we going to do?
It's a challenge card.
Exactly. And it's not bad either. Like it
No.
actually can work in cubes. So it's not just this like wild card.
It can make you very frustrated, but because Cube is a limited format, it's not as good as it is when you play like Legacy Land Standstill, where
if you can craft an entire theme deck around it, it's more impactful. Because there's definitely game states where it's like, I'm behind and my deck is going to take Standstill worse than my opponent's. Oops. So I just really enjoy Standstill. So it's a big pet card of mine.
All right, I am going to stay in blue with my third pick and pick Shimmer Dragon. This is the other part of the artifact deck.
Right.
Shimmer Dragon is 4 blue for a 5/6 creature dragon. It has flying, and as long as you control 4 or more artifacts, Shimmer Dragon has hexproof. Tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, draw a card. So Shimmer Dragon represents a different angle, whereas Tezzeret is kind of the summation of my favorite deck, which is why it is a pet card, even though it is a very good card. Shimmer Dragon could be replaced by 10 other blue 6-drops, and you wouldn't question which one was sitting in its spot.
That's about right, yeah.
But Shimmer Dragon gets in specifically because I love how it plays in my favorite deck. It's not that it's better than those other 6-drops. Even in the same deck, it's on par with like the best ones. But it's not as like good as them in any other deck.
Like Torrential Gearhulk.
It is just a strictly better thing to be putting in this spot.
Yeah.
But Shimmer Dragon will always get a spot with me. Well, currently, again, I also, one of the things I want to talk about when we're talking about pet cards is like, I don't believe these should be locked to your cube for forever.
No.
Shimmer Dragon is a pet card of mine. It is going to make me want to play the Tezzeret deck more. It doesn't take much, but it's going to make me want to play the Tezzeret deck more. It's a card that I have a great emotional response to. I could replace it should the need arise. It's not like I would never replace it with a strictly better card for a 6-drop blue slow control finisher card, right?
Right. It's just one of those that, like, if it's close, you're going to pick Shimmer Dragon.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that does really fit the pet card aspect where it's like, so long as you can defend it, it'll stay, right? Like,
yeah.
It has that emotional attachment that is pretty important.
Of my blue 6s, it's the one that is most likely to leave again. I'm not going to say it's not at the bottom of the rung. I'm saying why it's in the first place.
That's fair. I think I'll move on to one that's
painful.
Yeah. We've got Braids Cabal Minion. 2 black for a 2/2 legendary human minion. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land. Braids was one of the more fun decks to build in Cube, 8 years ago.
We have a lot of things to make aristocrats work better faster.
Yes. And more reliably, and that aren't a 4-drop 2/2.
Yeah, so this is like the awkward one of like, Braids has trouble being replaced in Cube because WotC will not print better Braids. Braids is already banned in EDH.
Which, I guess, it's fair. It is a punishing effect in Constructed.
Yes. And that's the problem is like, Cube could use Braids but updated for 2022 creatures.
Yeah, definitely.
Braids will never get printed like that.
Yeah, or add just like an extra thing on there or something like it's...
If you printed Braids today, Braids would be a 5/5.
I don't know.
And probably have Menace.
I don't know about that, but it would definitely not be a 2/2 with nothing on it. That is why it's painful to bring up Braids, because it honestly is a pet card, and it's kind of getting harder and harder to defend it staying in there. And a lot of the reason why Braids are stuck around is because it's a pet card. It's good enough to see play in decks.
And it's a unique enough effect that it's not like you can just replace her with a strictly better version or anything.
Right. And it's also got the emotions of all of the years of play that Braids was actually solid. So
I still think Braids is solid of the years where she was broken.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a better way of saying it. Where Braids was honestly very good. and it's just not there anymore, but it's still fine. It's good enough, and I think it deserves the pet spot.
Yeah. I do think Rankle has probably been like the new Braids.
It's definitely showing a bit more on Braids' power level in the current iteration.
Yeah.
I think you've got a 4-drop that you enjoy in black.
I do. His name is Gonti, Lord of Luxury. That was actually not like a planned segue. That was perfect. So Gonti, Lord of Luxury is 2 black for a 2/3 legendary creature, Aetherborn Rogue. Gonti has Death Touch, and when Gonti, Lord of Luxury, enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. Exile one of them face down. Then put the rest on the bottom of that library in a random order. You may look at and cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast that spell.
So, from my 4-drop 2/2 to your 4-drop 2/3 with Death Touch.
Gonti is an amazing card. We've already had an episode about Gonti. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's being displayed on the screen right now as a picture. I don't think you can actually link anything on YouTube anymore. Also, it's not on YouTube anyway, so it's not like it could link to another video.
I was like, you're going to link to...
But if it's audio you're listening to, I ain't looking it up.
Yes, we have talked about Gonti before, but it's a fun card.
It's a very fun card, and that's my defense for Gonti. Gonti, again, holds a place a lot like Shimmer Dragon, though more defensible generally.
Yeah.
Is it my worst 4-drop in black? That's not a pure experiment slot where I throw in the newest thing from the new set.
Yes.
It is. But it gets played in multiple decks without issue. It's not that it's bad by any means, it's just not as strong as something like Rankle. It's not as strong in its specific deck as Braids.
Yes, and I think that's one of the problems that Gonti has, is like, it is solid at a lot of things, but like it doesn't fit into Braids' deck kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a card that you're not going to give a 10 out of 10 review in any deck you slot it in, but it's also not going to ever get the 1 out of 10 review, even if you slotted it in blindly.
And it's got some sweet story. Like,
yes, the story equity is off the chain with Gonti,
which is a large reason of why I think you like it so much and that I enjoy it as well, is because some of the things Gonti has done is so fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not the most powerful thing, but like, it's just fun. It's good fun.
All right, let's get to your number 5.
Okay, so I'm kind of cheating. It's Burning and Wildfire. Like,
it's
they're
fair.
The same card.
They're worth 1 card combined.
Yeah, so I'll just read Wildfire. Wildfire is 4 red for a sorcery. Each player sacrifices 4 lands. Wildfire deals 4 damage to each creature.
So, we've had this talk on plenty of episodes.
Yeah, it's difficult to really explain because, like, Wildfire, I would not suggest a new cube owner really to go for it, because...
I disagree. If you are a new cube owner, you are the target audience of Wildfire. It is a very cheap deck to put into a cube. It is lower power level, so your first cube probably is not going to be running Jace the Mind Sculptor, Renin 6, Oko, blah, blah, blah.
That's true.
It will be more correctly power leveled for your cube.
I meant more of, like, if you were just grabbing a cube and building it with all of the other, like, Jaces and Okos and stuff like that, you're going to be very disappointed with Wildfire. Right? Like,
I don't even know if you'd be very disappointed. You would be disappointed, and it would emotionally hurt you more because of how fun it is.
Yeah.
It's just, it can't keep up.
No, it can't. At 6-drop, it's just not. It's not on the right curve for modern Magic.
Yeah. And it again suffers just like Gonti. Wildfire could use a 2022 version. It's never getting made better. They won't do it. They make like strictly worse in 5 different way versions nowadays. Yeah,
I mean, it's, like you said, Braids, land destruction, Wildfire, land destruction. They're not giving it to you. So, I mean, it's one of those that we've talked about it enough before that I don't think we need to go too much, but I think Wildfire and Burning are pet cards nowadays.
Absolutely. And of the entire list we're talking about, Wildfire is the one that is like furthest from my cube. It is the one that if you open up my cube in 3 months and it's not there, don't be surprised. Like, it's been on so many cut lists over the years.
It's been on the cut list for many years now. And it's continued to stay because it's a pet card. Like,
yes,
it's
exactly.
good enough that, like, you can push the deck if you have the right composition, and it can be fun, and you can go 2-1.
But that's what you're expecting with a Wildfire deck, is like, if I play my heart out, I will go 2-1.
Yep.
You never think I am going 3-0.
Right, like, you don't build a Wildfire deck and go, this is the best deck ever, I'm going to 3-0 unless I fuck up.
We're grading on the Wildfire curve. Like, oh shit, you went 2-1 with Wildfire? Damn.
Nice job. Yeah, and it's fun when you do that, so it's still in the cube.
Speaking of a land destruction that's not going to get any better, my next card is Pox, which is black, black, black for a sorcery. Each player loses a third of his or her life, then discards a third of the cards in his or her hand, then sacrifices a third of the creatures he or she controls, and then sacrifices a third of the lands he or she controls, round up each time. That is the clearest English version you can get, and it's on an MTGO printing.
A third of everything.
Round it up. Very important with Pox.
It is important, yes.
So Pox is absolutely not something you should be jamming in your cube.
Not anymore.
I ran it experimentally 5 years ago and it was disappointing.
Yeah.
I tried running it again recently. It's horrendous. You will not be playing it. Pox is incredibly fun. If the deck worked on a micro budget, it would be in all of the budget cubes. I think the deck is very unique. It attacks on angles that you don't normally see in modern Magic. It's a unique design space that sadly, because of the way the game has gone, is not going to be printed to a standard where most cubes can run it.
That's exactly where it kind of falls apart. Is like, Pox is not really there, and it's not going to be there anymore because they're not going to print more support for a Pox-style decks.
And it's sad because, like, Pox, small Pox, etc., like, the whole deck, Contamination, beautiful. Yeah. It's actually the best. Contamination is a very good card on its own.
Yeah.
Its problem is mainly that it's miserable. I like Contamination, but without the rest of the Pox deck, it loses the romance, and you just realize it's a miserable design.
Right. Like, when you're like really fully doing the Pox, small Pox, Contamination, that, like, it punches differently. Like, it's got that, like, I'm playing the Pox deck. You're going to be disappointed.
It do hit different.
Like, you're not going to have fun, but that's the point.
Yeah, so I can't recommend most of the Pox deck to an average cube owner at all. If you have a, like, very sculpted, whatever budget, whatever rarity, but low power cube, I would absolutely expect you to be trying out Pox at least once to see if your playgroup likes it. I know I'm talking to, like, 2 people in the audience who have that exact stipulation in their cube, but, like, I really want to see Pox in cube.
Yeah, no, it's a very fun deck, but not very ubiquitous anymore.
No.
Sadly.
All right, Eric, back to you.
Yeah, I've got another red card. We've got Mizzium Tank, 1 red for a 3/2 artifact vehicle with trample. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Mizzium Tank becomes an artifact creature and gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and it's crew 1.
I will say this. Of your entire list remaining, none of them are cards that I would remotely think of cutting currently in my cube, which I think shows a way that you've interpreted pet card. It's not that they're bad or cuttable. These are actually just the cards within my cube that are your pets. And I don't think they're in every cube. Some of them are more narrow.
Right, but, like, they're the cards that, like, if you were like, it's on the cut list, I'd be like, hey, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold the fuck on.
And I agree with you on all of them currently, but I could see that argument happening 3 years down the road when I try to get rid of one.
Right.
Yes, but Mizzium Tank won me over within our first draft of it. That thing can become absolutely disgusting in certain decks.
It can. It really can. And, like, the fact that non-creature spells, it turns on and gets bigger. Dude, there's a lot of play patterns to Mizzium Tank, and I'm here for it. I've really enjoyed it. It's not the most powerful 3-drop in red. I can accept that. I will be picking it highly, but it's definitely a pet card of mine that I think other people should look at as well if you haven't actually tried it yet, because I do think it plays very well.
All right, to my number 6, we have Thorn Mammoth. Thorn Mammoth is 5 green for a 6/6 creature elephant with trample, and whenever Thorn Mammoth or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Thorn Mammoth fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. This is a card that looks unassuming, but is fantastic. It's like 25 cents. Don't you dare inflate its price. I will stab you.
Dude, it's not going to be 25 cents for long. It never is.
So, Thorn Mammoth was actually recommended to me by, I think, one of the patrons. I hadn't even read it when we were doing Eldraine. I believe it's actually not in Eldraine. It's in the Brawl decks.
I was like, it's not a commander thing.
No, it was in Brawl in the original Eldraine set.
Yes.
I tried it out and fell in love almost instantly, and its evaluation stayed high. It's not like something where I cooled off on it as I played.
Right. Where like it did one amazing thing the first time you played it, and like from then it didn't do as well. Now,
I know that this isn't particularly a common take. Most people in the audience are like, I've never seen someone play Thorn Mammoth. Brad is an idiot. I urge you to attempt to play it. While I agree, Hornet Queen is one of the best things you can be doing in a cube defensively when you're behind in a ramp deck.
Yeah.
Thorn Mammoth is okay at that job. It's not as good as Hornet Queen, but it's okay at that job, and it is just a house at parity. Like, if you're playing back and forth fair magic, Thorn Mammoth is going to be absolutely backbreaking. And if it comes down to winning a game, it just does the job just as fast as, like, Hornet Queen at all. Like, it's dealing 6 damage, and it's got trample.
Yeah, I mean, it does have competition, so I can understand why, like, a pet card thing.
I have 2 7-drops, Hornet Queen and Thorn Mammoth.
Yeah.
I don't expect I will be swapping either of them out anytime soon. I would rather change around what I've got at 6 or 8 or whatever else.
Right, yeah, because I mean, Hornet Queen has proven a lot.
Hornet Queen is weird in a way where it's like, it's overrated, but it's still an A tier, like, good-ass card.
Right. Interestingly, it could... I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes kind of like a pet card aspect in a couple years.
Just because it's become more of an obscure thing in Magic, where it's like only cube players really care about it, so newer people won't know like how good it is.
Exactly.
That's fair.
I guess I'll take the next one. We've talked about this one a lot, and probably won't go in too far, but my next one is Birthing Pod.
Shocker. Eric likes Birthing Pods.
Yeah, Birthing Pod is 3 in a Phyrexian green for an artifact. You can pay 1 in a Phyrexian green, tap, sacrifice a creature. To search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card into the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate only anytime you could cast a sorcery. I mean, we've gone into like the pod archetype and all that stuff.
We even turned that episode into a YouTube episode because so many people asked for it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been a pet card for me for a long time now.
Okay, so like outside of Cube, absolutely.
Yeah.
I still remember us brewing way back when it first came out. We were brewing that green-white Birthing Pod mid-range deck thing in Standard.
It was like a weird control deck, kind of.
It was like green-white control. It was very strange. It worked remarkably well for how absolutely trash it looked.
But it was honestly because Birthing Pod is really good and constructed. Shocking. And it's always been a pet card of mine. I like what it's doing. I especially like the thought that it takes during draft and deck building.
Yeah, and to go back to what I said previously, it goes right back to what we said with Standstill of, I think you could say Eric's pet cards are challenge cards.
Yes.
Where they are the challenge while drafting of, I'm going to make this work. And in a way, you could say Wildfire is the exact same thing.
It is. It's actually surprising how many of my cards are like that, in that I am looking for some type of challenge.
Look, when you've been playing Cube for literally over a decade, you want to do something interesting when you sit down to the table.
Or sometimes you just want to red deck wins and smash in the face with a goblin.
Sometimes you've had 3 beers before we start the draft. Whatever.
Yeah. But, so yeah, I mean, that's Birthing Pod. It's a pet card of mine. It's getting better, I think, because there's more and more stuff. But what do you got next, Brad?
You won't believe number 7.
Oh, it's that one now, huh?
We're at Plow Under. I didn't lie, guys.
It wasn't clickbait. It was true.
I guess it was clickbait because you absolutely believe number 7. All right, number 7's Plow Under. It's 3 green sorcery. It's pretty damn simple. Put 2 target lands on top of their owner's library. This is my favorite green card to ever exist. It's not an exaggeration. That is the number 1 green card ever printed. Plow Under is my personal favorite card. We have a whole episode about it from 100 years ago. Brad never passes Plow Under. I've talked at length about this card.
Yeah. It's not the most powerful card anymore, Brad.
No, it has so many stories behind it.
It does.
You guys don't understand how impossible it is to get Eric to concede a game of Magic.
Nah, dude, it's basically impossible.
You do not understand slow play man over here.
Dude, if there's like a 0.01% chance, I'm playing.
If you can tilt Eric out of a game of Magic, you have found the greatest card. So,
and Plow Under managed to do it.
Plow Under speaks for itself. All right, let's move on.
So the next one I'm not sure on. I've got Fauna Shaman. I'll just read the card first. Fauna Shaman is 1 and a green. For a 2/2 elf shaman, you can pay green, tap, discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. This is an interesting one because, to me, this is a fairly staple-ish card in cubes, but I haven't seen it as ubiquitous as I would expect.
And I honestly had to question Eric when we were putting these together because I didn't think Fauna Shaman fell under pet card, but maybe I'm out of date and am the boomer. But lots of people still run Fauna Shaman, right? Like, this is a pretty normal card for people to be running because this card is gas.
I mean, I think it is, but from looking at cubes, there's been...
If people stopped running Survival, too?
There's been a number that haven't ran Fauna Shaman, and I wonder if it's just because it's old and people have forgotten about it.
Yeah, it's only got the 2 printings. It's more expensive than it should be, blah, blah, blah. There's 100 green 2-drops that are good, so you don't have to run certain ones.
Exactly.
There's a lot of arguments to be made to not run Fauna Shaman specifically, but, like, she's so good and so fun.
And I think, it's one of those, like, I don't know if this actually deserves pet, but this is going to be a pet card if it's not, like... If for whatever reason more and more cubes are not actually playing it and it continues to fall off going in the future, Fauna Shaman will continue to be a pet card for me because I think this is just a fantastic card. I love playing with Fauna Shaman.
Grim Monolith eats my number 8 slot. And no, I'm not on drugs. Grim Monolith is 2 generic mana for an artifact. Grim Monolith does not untap during your untap step. It has tap, add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. It's that old. And it's got 4 mana, untap Grim Monolith. Part prison, part home. So Grim Monolith is a very, very, very expensive, very, 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 very powerful magic card.
Yeah.
So why is it on my pet card list?
I don't know, Brad. Why is it on your pet card list?
Not for the same reason as the rest of the list.
I assume it's because it's so expensive and so powerful.
It represents the other side of things. It is the mistake that you know you probably should not have in your format, but you keep anyway. For some people, it's like Skull Clamp.
Yep.
For people, it may be Power.
Soul Ring.
Yeah, Soul Ring. Whatever it is for you.
I mean, Soul Ring was a huge thing, like 8 years ago or whatever, when people like didn't really understand.
I'd say 12 to 10 years ago was a lot of people de-soul ringing cubes.
Yeah, where it was like, oh, right, this card is dumb.
Which is funny because it's right about when it hit like $7 and EDH players started wanting them all the time. Weird to go back.
But yeah, Grim Monolith is definitely in there, and yet you still play it.
Yeah, so Grim Monolith is a special case in my cube. It and Mox Diamond, though Mox Diamond is much more defensible, because it's so enabling for things, like it lets the Ren and 6 deck do its dirty stuff.
That's true.
Again, Mox Diamond has a purpose. Grim Monolith is literally just fast mana.
Yeah.
And like, Mox Diamond is also just fast mana. But
it really is. But I understand what you're saying is like you can have it enable things that otherwise wouldn't happen. Whereas like Grim Monolith is just fast mana. Like you're not really breaking it. You're just sort of cheating on the curve because the card's so good.
Yeah. And I consider Grim Monolith like a pet card of mine where if it was any other fast mana card, it would not be in my cube.
Yeah.
I got rid of the vast majority of stuff I was playing that was like Grim Monolith.
I mean, there was a time when like we actually talked about it where it was like, we should cut Grim Monolith, and you were...
Oh, we've had the conversation multiple times.
Yeah, you. It's obviously a pet card for you because you've kept defending it like, yeah, I know it shouldn't be in here, but it's still going to be in here.
It is too good for my cube. I don't care.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That is my Grim Monolith, goddammit.
Yep.
And I love it so, and it's good in my two favorite archetypes, Tezzeret, Control Decks, and Ramp. It's good in everything, but you get my point.
That's about right. Yeah. It's just generally a good card, but
all right. So back to your card that I hate that is not Grim Monolith tier.
We've got Winter Orb, which is 2 for an artifact. As long as Winter Orb is untapped, players can't untap more than 1 land during their untap steps.
So a lot of people when they see Winter Orb, they pair it in their minds with Tanglewire.
Yeah.
I consider Tanglewire to be very good design. An obnoxious magic card.
Yeah.
But it is a very clever design. It makes you feel cool when you play it. As the pilot, you can almost always win the Tanglewire.
You have a substantial lead because of how Tanglewire works, yes.
Yes. Winter Orb is a card that other people will tell you is busted, and then you will play it and lose with it. When you had no right to lose with it, it's just the coin flip decided, fuck you.
Yeah. I've lost with Winter Orb a decent number of times.
Yes.
Like, playing Winter Orb in, like, a deck that, like, I should win this.
Yeah. You look at your hand and you're like, if I cast Winter Orb, I win. You cast Winter Orb and you fucking lose.
Yeah.
Winter Orb is a weird card. I hate it. I don't think it's overly strong. A lot of the older parts of the Cube community will have fonder memories of it.
All that said, it's still a pet card to me. Like, I still would be sad to see it go.
Mm-hmm.
I would fight to keep it in the cube.
And it's not a bad card.
No.
It's a very difficult card compared to something like Tanglewire, where it's just when you play it, you are at an advantage in it. Like, it looks like it has parity, but it doesn't.
There's a lot more planning and foresight necessary for Winter Orb, and, like, even then, like, it can just bite you and you're screwed. But if you just play a Winter Orb without, like, a plan, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, don't do that.
Like you have to have a plan and like follow it. And I like that. I mean, it's honestly, it's like the rest of my fucking list, dude. There's like it's a thought thing. There's achievements to it. It's interesting, and it has been a while since I've played a Winter Orb deck, and I mean, I like it. It's a pet card for me. I like it.
All right, so my number 9 is a card I think we're both very fond of.
Yeah.
I have Mr. Anthony Avitolo to thank for my number 9. Niv-Mizzet Parun is blue, 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 red, red, red. Wake up.
It's basically uncastable.
For a 5/5 legendary creature dragon wizard. Niv-Mizzet Parun has this spell can't be countered. Flying. And whenever you draw a card, Niv-Mizzet Parun deals 1 damage to any target. And whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. This card is not the best card in my Izzet section. I don't think it's the worst still. But some people would say it's the worst in my Izzet section. They're wrong.
It's also a problem of, this is a gold card. Like, you only have so many slots in your guild sections.
That's up to you. Hashtag grow your gold.
I mean, yeah. But, like, having a card that's, like, whatever and not the most powerful.
But that said, Niv-Mizzet Parun gets me into blue-red more than any other blue-red card can. For you, the first place is probably Scions.
Yeah. I mean, Saheeli, but, like, that's cheating. So, yeah, Scions.
Yeah, so, like, Niv-Mizzet Parun is not the most powerful card. It is an acceptable power level for a 6-drop. It is harder to cast than it should be. But in a way, I see that as the challenge of like, play a fair blue-red control deck where I will cast and win with Niv-Mizzet.
Right. And it is powerful. Like, if you get to that board state where you're able to cast Niv-Mizzet, you're able to protect it, you get to your next turn, you're in a solid position.
And not to, like, say something really dumb, but cards like Force of Will and Force of Negation gain ground in my draft when I am going for Niv-Mizzet and, like, pack 3, you open up a Force of Will. I normally wouldn't pack 3, pick 1 it over, like, generic other good card.
Right.
If I'm trying to cast Niv-Mizzet, I will, because I want to be able to cast Niv with protection up. And it's hard to do that because Niv is already a 6-drop with very hard color requirements.
Yeah, I mean, it also has some real good fun with, like, Gush. So... I'm with you. I like Niv-Mizzet Perun. It's definitely not the most powerful or the most obvious Izzet card, but I like it. Good pet card.
It's a card that if you play it, I promise, the first time someone's eyes light up in a draft, you'll want to keep it.
Exactly.
All right, we each have one last card. That's right, this was a secret top 10 list each, which I guess is like a top 20 list. I don't know how it works. But there you go. Aurelio, you sick bastard, you can do the clickbait title you wanted.
The worst part is, like, mine's ordered in Wooburg, not in a top.
Oh yeah, so is mine. These are not top 10 lists.
But yeah, I'll finish up with Blast Zone. Blast Zone is a land that enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it. You can tap to add colorless. You can pay XX tap to put X charge counters on Blast Zone, and you can pay 3 tap sacrifice Blast Zone to destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. I think everybody should play Blast Zone in their cubes.
I'm concerned that you put this on the list. This was with Fauna Shaman on mine. Why is this even on the list?
Because there are some people that don't have Blast Zone in their cube.
Have they never played Grixis Control?
Exactly.
I consider this one of the best colorless lands in Magic history.
I'm with you on that, dude. I'm right there with you. So this maybe isn't really a pet card because I think everybody, like, I legitimately do think Blast Zone is a phenomenal colorless card in cubes, and I have no interest in hearing otherwise.
If you don't see it as a colorless card, think of it as a Grixis hybrid card.
Right.
It is still one of the best cards you could be putting in that slot.
Yeah, and it works in a lot of different decks. It solves a lot of problems that otherwise decks could have troubles with.
Specifically decks that I like to play, hint my last card.
Yeah. And, like, it's not even just in those decks, though. Like, it's just a good card. Like, it works in a lot of other archetypes as well.
But I consider it, like, a super high priority if I am playing a control deck without access to white or green.
Yep.
Because it gets rid of whatever your problem is. And it's shockingly, like, people will be like, ew, that seems like a lot of mana to do it. If you're in the control deck, you don't give a shit.
No, it's really not, because you're using your resources efficiently to deal with other problems.
The highest you ever need is 3 anyway.
Yeah, and you set it up so that, like, it works on the turns that you need it to, so it really isn't difficult to do correctly, especially in decks like Nicol Balls.
A Grixis control deck featuring a Nicol Balls. It could be any of them. Literally, pick your favorite Nicol Balls. I don't care.
What's your favorite Nicol Balls for cubes, though?
So, I have been loving Nicol Balls Dragon God. He is blue, black, red for a legendary Planeswalker Bolas. With 4 starting loyalty, Nicol Balls Dragon God has all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. He's also got 3 bonus abilities, which is +1, you draw a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. He has a -3 of destroy target creature or planeswalker, and a -8 of each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or planeswalker loses the game. I consider Nicol Balls Dragon God to be the perfect Bolas power spectrum to castability ratio.
That's fair, yeah, because it is castable.
There are other Bolases who I consider to be better than Dragon God in play. But Dragon God is just as flashy as those options.
Yeah.
And way lower on the curve to the point where it's a much more castable thing in a generic control deck. And it makes you want to do something slightly thematic in your otherwise generic control deck of, hey, at least maybe my plan is to play too many Planeswalkers where I should be putting something else in the slot, but fuck it, I want to play with my Nicol Balls.
Yeah, and when like they have a Planeswalker and you use it anyways, and you're just like, hee hee.
Yeah, like
it's just fun.
It's got a little story time to it. It's part of the flash appeal, like why
Yeah.
it's so flashy, whereas the other ones get through the, it's flashy because it's 8 goddamn mana and does what I said as it does.
Yeah, but like it's difficult to actually justify putting in your cube because like
It's not, because your cube has
that's
X
true.
amount of space in it, and you can choose what goes in there.
You can choose the pet cards that you want to put in there.
My current iteration of my cube is not color balanced at the 3 color spectrum.
Right.
It waits and only does ones that are good, and Bolas gets in for my Grixis one, whereas I don't have them for several others.
Yeah. Nicol Balls Dragon God is definitely fun. So I'm with you. But, you know, at the same time, not everybody's looking at having a Grixis slot.
So there you go. That is our list of pet cards that we defend and why. Hopefully, other than just a list of cards, you got something out of it as to like, hey, maybe I should try this thing that I really want, but I think is wrong to put in my cube.
Or like, hey, there's this card that I really like, but I should probably take it out because there's other things. No, just keep it. It's fine. It's okay. You can have your pets.
So can the rest of your playgroup, which is another final note.
Yes.
Know your playgroup's pet cards. I know there are certain cards that I would remove from my cube, but certain members of my playgroup would throw a hissy fit. My brother with most of the Reanimator deck.
Yeah, that's about right. And yeah, I mean, you can have those pet cards make the draft more fun for your playgroup.
Alright, so that wraps up the topic for the week. Let's hit our outro.
Sounds good.